it's a state route,
Yeah.
88. And are you asking to dedicate an like that 50-foot right of way, is that addressing 88? Because there's no new streets being
Correct.
created.
I mean, that's been done previously in this township.
What are you trying, I'm just trying to, it's 88's 50-foot right of way.
88 to 33.
33,
Right.
50 foot.
So
One of the comments is to make it a 50.
our section 242 of our ordinance states that local streets, the minimum right-of-way width is 50 feet. And there are many instances in this township where the roads are not 50 feet road right-of-way. Certainly in the past and in some other places, when you have applications that come through to update the recorded plan, that we would make a request that the applicant on their side of the street, beginning from the road center line, would show 25 feet as the road right-of-way. Doesn't change the way the deed description's written, it's just, the deed still describes to the center line of the road, it's just shown as an additional 8.5 feet of roadway dedication.
So that 8.5 foot, is that gonna be dedicated to the township or the state? That's the kind
It's
of.
just shown, typically what I've seen done before is it's just shown on the drawing as a future road right-of-way.
Yeah, because that's a state right of way, it's not a
Yeah.
township
Correct.
right of way.
Correct.
I mean, you can show it as a 50 foot, but
Correct.
I don't think I don't think you wanna go through the onerous procedure of trying to dedicate,
They may not accept it.
you may not
That
accept.
too.
Well, you could do it and they could just not do anything, but I think it would be onerous to go through that process.
Yeah, I think it might shed some cloud on the title down the road and cause the plan, and there's no plans in place, no tenants, but eventually our client hopes that this entire thing is gonna be developed, so it might be jogged, right away along the lot. And then I guess if we are showing a 50-foot right away on our side, then where does our setbacks come from? Cause then that has the implications on the development area, so
Right, everything.
we can walk, discuss that, but I've seen it in the past where there is a development, they're developing the entire site, and there is, a dedication to the state for additional right of way, but the state has mandated that. I don't know if that's the case
So
here.
if we would put the 50 foot, 25 setback, what's the setback for that area?
The front is 35 feet,
35.
From the edge of the right of way,
correct.
and that puts you,
You'd be talking about moving the setback 8.5 feet from where they have it currently shown.
Yeah. So that has implications.
that causes a problem in terms of you
Sure.
blocking the lot.
Yeah, I mean, it is a large site, but when you start laying out
Yeah, well,
stormwater and basins and stormwater management and all that, it gets tight. But maybe
And
that
that's-
could be a comment to the engineer after.
yeah, ultimately, that's a decision that the board of supervisors could make. I'm just pointing it out as our ordinance requires 50 feet, and in this instance, it's only 33 feet. So,
I got a question.
sure.
Isn't this area in contention, or the state is traffic study, and quite possibly you're gonna have a turning lane in this area somewhere? And would this not be the time, or have the state input to address that potential, so we're not squeezing something that can be accommodated before it's chopped up into a configuration and nobody's happy?
That's a great idea, but that wouldn't be part of this subdivision process, it's probably part of the land development process.
Okay,
This is the same deal, because I've been here long enough, they'll chop one section out and they'll say, okay, this condition was here, we're gonna do another section and another section, and next thing you know, the state's gonna come in, which I thought was underway, and address, we need a turning lane. So, if there's no room for it, who's gonna give it up? This is the time to give it up for when it's vacant. you can do so elsewhere. It's no different than building a building. If you have a critical area to maintain, you cheat it out of some non-critical area to achieve the purpose.
Sure, I understand what you're saying, I guess we have some constraints in the rear of the property with that pretty large, gas.
You got a multi-fuel gas line
Yeah,
there. It runs everything imaginable
Sure.
through it.
yeah,
You get a hole in that, you better kiss your ass goodbye.
exactly.
And if
That's why we're staying away from it.
And if the hillside slips, you're done too.
100%.
So an elevation is something that has to be addressed. Now, I like due to the fact that you're going to use, Tractor Supplies and your potential, connection, that's a highway permit. What's not being addressed here, is that highway permit granted for Tractor Supply only, or is it granted for the use of the vacant property?
So it's our driveway.
Doesn't matter who, when it comes from the state, it has to be addressed for a certain usage. If you increase the usage, then that, intersection has to be addressed.
Sure.
So if you do what you wanna do, but somewhere down the line, we're here to try to avoid any complications in the future. This is raw ground, and this is the time to cut it up the right way as such. Not to put the burden on your client or anything else, that's life.
Sure, no, do you, this is Chris Hahn, the engineer, do you address the HOP?
We looked at some of the HOP, and I will get, as part of our next submittal, we had actually Worcester look at this intersection because they did all the work originally for the Tractor Supply. So that'll be part of our next submission with the traffic.
But this is what, in my knowledge or what has been conveyed, eventually this is gonna be a traffic nightmare if it's not addressed correctly now.
And as of right now, the only place that I know PennDOT has contemplated, there's been any discussion of a possible turning lane, is actually at Hidden Hollow. If Scarmazzi wants to expand the number of lots up over his hill, I believe that needed to add a right turn, basically a decel lane into Hidden Hollow.
Well, then the other factor is, we'll say Hidden Hollow had minimal site approval, which is questionable in my opinion. That terrain should be laid back to increase the site distance regardless of what occurs. But that's not something we're here to address at this time, it's a future thing.
Degrading along,
Yeah.
so that's addressed in the land development.
Well, especially on a curved area, so you increase the site distance on Sleepy Hollow or whatever, you
I
know.
believe that our client's intention, if they can remove that hill, they will. You know,
We're cutting it down as we go across. And then even as far as the right of way, I would like to get another interpretation of section 242. I believe it only applies to new roadways. Because if you read it, it talks about standards, but there's nothing I can find in the ordinance that requires the taking of additional right of way on a property.
What happens if you don't allow now, and the state needs a
I
clear
agree, I'm just stating that in the ordinance, I don't think it states that we, are required to
potentially
give any
whoever owns that, the state's gonna have to buy it or condemn it. And if you have utilities and poles and such that maybe aren't there now, it's an increased cost factor. So-
and that's the purpose of, I believe, the extra 10 feet of the utility easement that was granted during the Tractor Supply subdivision along the front, was to try to push the utilities back as far as they could.
Hey, I'm just telling you what I know, and you apparently know, and, you'll present it to us as such.
John, your point is a good one. One of our comments in our land development review is discussing traffic. And this subdivision and land development ordinance, as well as the zoning ordinance, have certain requirements, for applicants at the discretion of the Board of Supervisors to provide a traffic impact study.
And that's what I mentioned, Rooster's putting one together that we will get into you guys, cause I know they looked at this site as a whole.
Back in,
Well, they looked at it for Tractor Supply, and then since, the Webbers bought the property, they have actually re-looked at.
yeah, I
That
participated in a scoping meeting back
Yeah.
in February maybe.
Yeah.
So, I know, and as part of those traffic impact studies and, you know, the process with PennDOT, certainly you look at the existing uses, but also the proposed uses in that area.
Well, the
So
other
that's
factor,
something that will be
They're
covered by the
proposing, we'll
traffic.
say, a car wash. The usage changes with time. I mean, buildings today last 10 years, they knock them down and the usage changes. So it makes sense to do the correct thing at the correct time.
The traffic impact study that's prepared by the developer will contemplate existing and future uses as well as the full build out of that entire pad area. That's my understanding, right, Chris?
Yeah, and I think, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but like even with some of the questions for stormwater, I probably should have laid it out a little bit more on the way the stormwater pond's currently designed. It's actually designed for 80% impervious of that whole right side of the pad. So we're not doing piecemealed stormwater management for each little pad on that side. So basically 50% of the pad that's there now is, will be handled by the stormwater pond that's proposed as part of the land development.
You talking about 242-62?
It says section 242, attachment 2.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dennis, 24262 deals with streets, public streets. 242 attachment 2 is right at the end of the ordinance, and it's street standards. So, Appendix 1 deals with site triangles, and Appendix 2 deals with street design standards.
I think John does, as far as that, does bring a good idea, because there's more development, you need more roads.
And I don't even know if we're 100% opposed to the extra 8.5 feet. Where it really gets more into is the 35-foot setback. It starts pushing the buildings farther back.
Could you show it as, right now, an easement? Because if you show it as a proposed dedication and the state never take it, then it becomes kind of no man's land. So maybe an easement to the township, and then the township can dedicate it to the state.
That's a possibility. It does say 50 feet for local road. Question is, what is a local road? Ronnie needs a local road.
But like I said, does that, my question is, does that mean 50 feet local roads as part of new subdivisions that are creating new local roads? Or does that apply to every land development project that goes on in the
Yeah,
town?
it's
So, yeah.
somewhat vague.
But I mean, like I said, I think Keith's suggestion, if it is more of an easement, we leave the 35-foot setback where it's at, so it really doesn't affect our layout any, because we're still able to set our buildings. And it's this parcel, the car wash parcel that we're proposing, it does not necessarily affect this particular parcel, the way we have it laid out. But where we're a little bit hesitant, I think, to just blanket grant it is we haven't planned the rest of the path.
Right. The implication for the rest of the site.
But
Sure.
but if you put, for the land development situation, calling this echo wash, what are we gonna call it? If we go with the 50-foot right of way, does that impact the echo wash, car wash?
No.
Alright. So we can just limit this interpretation just for this parcel, correct? It's not gonna be an issue.
It would just be lot one. Or, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what
Yeah,
lot
that one, yeah. So it'd go up here, then 8.5 foot jog and over and back.
Well, I think their question is it does
So who
this
owns it?
apply to just the new lot, or does it also apply to the residual?
If you're gonna, to me, the way more is written, it applies for the whole parcel.
That's my interpretation as well. But
But
honestly, it's
again,
more of a legal issue than an engineering issue.
I guess,
Well, then there,
do you wanna own a strip of land, excuse me, sir, sorry.
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
talking over you. Eventually, Union Township could own that 8.5 foot strip of land if PennDOT don't accept it. And then that becomes a nightmare again. And then liabilities and,
it's just an easement.
I think an easement,
That's all it is. Your
and then-
grant is an easement.
grant the 8.5 foot easement, so besides that side of the road is 25 foot. And then hopefully one day PennDOT, accepts the dedication, we just dedicate that easement. I think that's the cleanest way to do it.
Well, right now you enter the center of the road.
No, we went to the right of way.
So how's the deed
It's the
described?
center
I'm
of
not
the
sure
right
how
of
the
way.
deed
Does it
is
go out to the
Either
center
way,
of the road?
But,
So,
but I think
in
where Keith's
theory,
also getting at
your
is,
client is paying taxes
To the
on
center.
unusable ground. So,
We all are,
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania, we are.
yeah. So, in other instances, if you're in a housing plan, the property line would not start center of easement,
That'd be the right of way.
would be the right of way.
Correct.
So, what game do you wanna play?
Yeah, no, it certainly, you know, the issue arose in Pennsylvania tonight.
Yeah, I know that.
So all the new roads being developed, you're right, it's a
Yeah.
dedication, township accepts it, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Here, even finding ownership in some of these roads, and if it's to the road, it's to the center of the road. So
Yeah,
we
well,
own title to the
I've
center.
been doing this long enough. In theory, we've done it here. There's 10 feet on the other side of the road that the other property owner owns. And he's paying taxes on a 10-foot strip. You know, he's paying property taxes on the road plus 10 feet on the other side. What are you gonna do with the 10 feet on the other side?
Well, we get a survey, we
So-
establish it right away, and then we get Union Township to buy the road.
Well,
Or we gift it,
Right.
we'll gift it to you.
it's not a gift.
Yeah.
In some instances, they needed that property, that ground, to satisfy the lot size requirements. So it's a game you play. I've been doing this for over
So
40 years.
There's definitely games being played in the last 50, but when Route 88 was laid
No.
out, there was no games being played.
Well, no, they're, 88 shifted too.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, there's old Route 88, they cut it over here, even Trax is out there. They cut that bend back. If you look at the old fire hydrants, it's 20 feet over, off the roadway. So it's a shift, it was granted, it was paid for or whatever. But when you get into old subdivisions and the lot lines or deed says, Joe Smith Farmer owns 10 feet along McShane Road on the opposite side of his farm, he owns it. He's been paying taxes on it. When they come in and subdivide the lots, say you need 80 by 150 or 160. So, okay, he owns that. But the thing of it is, there's a road right of way going through it. But the lot size is legal.
Yeah, and this is why I've
So,
been involved in playing
so
those.
whatever here, it's called the Union Township's gonna buy, a 10-foot easement or own a 10-foot easement. Your client owns the ground. It's a right of way or easement or whatever you wanna call it.
well, that creates then another question I have. If we do dedicate that 8.5, who owns it? And here's why I ask. If the Webbers keep that 8.5 foot, technically that lot one no longer has any road frontage,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is
So,
a problem.
which is, yeah,
yeah,
But
so,
by the same token, you can not deny somebody road, access to the road is illegal, I'm sure.
sure,
Our solicitor could address it.
sure,
You cannot deny them getting from there to there because of a small strip.
yeah,
yeah, I'm not saying, because we're not, the road, the frontage for this parcel's more of a technicality. We have no
Right.
intention of accessing Route 88
It's a
from this
hillside.
parcel. We're using the driveway.
No.
However, the ordinance requires road frontage
Correct,
for a parcel.
right.
So that's where I'm saying that creates a little bit of a legal question if we do create
it becomes a
the road right
parcel.
away, an 8.5 foot parcel, then another
Yeah.
parcel.
So it's a conforming lot, how it is.
Yeah,
because it has
no.
the frontage.
But you're throwing these different scenarios, believe me, I know most of them.
Yeah. No, there's no scenario. I don't think the 50-foot right of way applies to this layout. Because it's a state road, and I believe that how we read the ordinance, that it's when you're laying out a new residential or commercial subdivision, that they're the right of way width for new roads. Tractor Supply didn't go through this.
Well, tractor supply is another issue.
Okay, well, we weren't involved, but I can only go from the court of
No,
plan.
yeah,
It's a mess.
That established,
right.
and within the last couple of years, so that's the precedent we're going in on there.
So there's not gonna be access, there won't be access other than.
Well, while we're going,
Right.
might as well.
Through
Yeah,
the existing driveway.
yeah, all the access to this site, that's actually what the purpose of this 30-foot easement coming across is to establish a drive off of the existing
Right.
tractor supply. And
That's fine.
honestly, the reason why we're looking at this is this will probably end up being another potential parcel at some point in time when
I'm sure.
another. And
That's
this, the
obvious.
intention, honestly, for this is actually to extend that the whole way over to Hidden Hollow throughout the plan and connect to Hidden Hollow, so there'll actually be two connections into the overall plan when we get there. We've done some master planning, but obviously it's a matter of seeing where tenants come in.
Then you're gonna have to have, light suppression for, vehicles, because you're gonna be at a higher elevation, shooting across the roadway.
Well, we're
That's
reducing
right.
the site.
Huh?
The site's coming down.
Well, it doesn't matter, whatever may be across the street, other, car washing facilities, even down there in the library, they have an adjoining property that they had to put a fence up because the lights were, blinding the neighbor,
Right.
so it's,
Yeah, luckily for this, there are no residential. Obviously, there's a large residential behind us, but, I don't foresee that being any type of impact. Everything across is commercial. Which I think we're finally getting to a point where maybe we got the zoning done across the road, but that's a whole nother thing.
Alright, so you're saying basically that the way the ordinance reads says basically that you're supposed to have, we have a lot of public, frontage along the public road.
Correct.
But really, your frontage is not on the public road.
It is.
Our frontage is along the public road, our access is. on the access.
So that's what I'm saying, the access is on a private road.
I have a question. As you develop that, you're bringing a roadway down to the car wash.
Mhm.
So obviously you're gonna develop, I'm gonna say behind.
Mhm.
Well, that doesn't front a road. How does that work?
That could, these parcels, like, along here would maybe be owned by, like, this whole area here could be owned just by the current owner, which would include
Yeah, so
this whole, like, a larger strip with
a
just these
building
parcels.
here with no future subdivision, that's the frontage.
Oh,
Yeah, so we're just establishing this as a separate lot.
okay.
I mean, we could probably, just have this as a leased area, so we're establishing a separate tax parcel.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say, the reason why we're establishing it is more the way the bank wants to see everything go through. They want it's going to be the same ownership. It's not the car wash, it's going to be similar looking like a mod wash, things like that, but it is not a franchised wash, it's not associated with any other washes. But it's going to be same ownership of the overall parcel and the car wash will be the same owner. Just the way financing works, they wanna see the car wash on its own lot.
But now's a good time, our clients are here, the Webbers, if you have any questions for them. But, yeah, it's,
When did you, if you're looking at future, Tractor Supply, that's your easement. It doesn't matter to us, but it should be addressed by them. Why not make it 50 foot back? Why not
It's
make
60,
it?
it's 60 right now.
Okay, so then pass the car wash and a continuation, let that be at least 50 or 60 or whatever as such. Then whatever you build back here, if something occurs and you wanna change something, you have the room or the easement as such. It may end up, you wanna go have the township take over the damn road.
yeah, you won't, like,
Yeah, today we will,
right.
tomorrow we
Well,
will.
Well, we'd have to build it to township specs, but, yeah, the intention would not be
Well, I'm
this
just
to be
saying,
a
why
public
would you
road.
pride yourself now when you have it to do for the future if you need it?
John, I don't wanna speak on their behalf, but the subdivision ordinance does set forth provisions for what's called a service street, which is a 30-foot right of way and a 20-foot cartway, and it's at least my understanding that, you know, in terms of this
Okay,
development, they're looking
well,
at more of a different style than a public right
That's
of way.
fine. If I was doing this, believe me, I wouldn't worry about a 30-foot alley. Alleys are problems. And 30 feet crowds any potential utilities that more than likely are gonna go down. So they can do as they wish legally.
Alright, bash this thing off, about 15 minutes.
I would say on the land development side, PJ and I talked a little bit earlier today, and at least for that, we're looking just, we're requesting approval tonight, because we're gonna work through this. We received his comments on, the fourth,
We're
Monday or
not,
Tuesday.
not on, we wanna move forward with the lot.
Alright, so did he made a land development application?
As well, yeah.
And you paid for the land development application?
Yeah, that has to be confirmed with the office, but.
Alright, so